Right before we sat down to record the show, we got a tip that there was a recent interview done with Benioff and Weiss, the team behind Game of Thrones, and also the team behind what was going to be the sort of birth of the Force, Star Wars BC, old, Dawn of the Jedi. That story that is now being handled by director and writer James Mangold is. But it was in the hands of Benioff and Weiss at one point. And Jim, on the Happy, Sad, Confused podcast, hosted by Josh Horowitz, I guess they are making some very public statements about that project and where it is now and their feelings about it.
Well, basically, the real meat of this this clip we're going to play is D.B. Weiss talking about how far along they worked on the apparently the birth of the Jedi story that they wanted to create with Lucasfilm. The Game of Thrones guys were riding high on the hog at this point in their career, and they sat down with Josh Horowitz. They have another project that's out there right now. It was just released. I can't, I forget what the name of this new project is, but
so that's why they're on the circuit.
It's called Three Body Problems.
Oh, okay.
Three Body, or maybe just Three Body Problem. And I think it's a Netflix thing. They left Lucasfilm and signed a big deal with Netflix, like a $250 million deal with Netflix once Game of Thrones wrapped up, and their association with Star Wars fell apart. But it was announced by Kathy Kennedy that the Game of Thrones guys, Benioff and Weiss, were going to helm a series of Star Wars films. No information was really given about those films, but it's been since learned that it was Dawn of the Jedi type stuff.
Right.
And so Horowitz has them both on his show, Happy, Sad, Confused, talking about Three Body Problem or Three Body Problems. Oh, no, it's just Three Body Problem. It's their new show, and you can watch it on Netflix. Game of Thrones creators, this is their next big project. It was supposed to be Star Wars, though. So Horowitz asks, and D.B. Weiss responds to the question about how far along were you guys in developing this particular Star Wars story?
I think we got relatively far story-wise with the first one, and like had kind of a basic roadmap for the other two. And yeah, it was a shame. I mean, it's just, the truth is that our Hollywood's ratio or batting average on things conceived to things actually finished has never been tremendously high, and there are always going to be ones that get away for various reasons, the ones that just aren't meant to be. So yeah, it was sad that was one of them for us, but it's just, you kind of, as time goes on, you just kind of need to let go of those things, because if you don't, you'll drive yourself completely crazy. So
there's got to be a part of them, though, at this point that it's like, man, we may have really dodged a bullet here. We really may have. I mean, it hasn't been necessarily all roses certainly wasn't for Star Wars films in the wake of the Solo, Rise of Skywalker. These were all set to come out following those. And, those movies, they kind of laid a big egg. And then Mandalorian sort of picked up the Star Wars excitement. And they just haven't been able to get anything going in the theater since. But I just can't help but think, if I'm Benioff and Weiss, that, and it sounds like D.B. Weiss is still pretty kind of bummed out about it. I mean, I guess if you're a filmmaker of a certain generation, the opportunity to make a whole trilogy of Star Wars films is pretty exciting. But I don't know. It would be hard for me to not think of that as a blessing, given the conditions that these people have to work in with Lucasfilm.
or given the way the final season of Game of Thrones was received by their fans, maybe us as Star Wars fans dodged a bullet by Benioff and Weiss removing themselves from Star Wars.
Well, the first two of the trilogy
never
might have been
know.
good, but the third one might have stunk.
That's never happened before in Star Wars. But Josh Horowitz, the way he kind of sums this all up is he tweeted out, there was a lot of sadness and a little awkwardness when I brought up to the Game of Thrones guys their abandoned Star Wars trilogy. So you hear under the surface a bit of disappointment there.
Yeah, for sure.
From D.B. Weiss. Josh continued the conversation and asked David Benioff about how he feels about James Mangold picking up the slack and running with the ball when it comes to telling a story about the earliest days of the Jedi and the Force. And I didn't even bother pulling that clip for you to listen to because David Benioff appeared to be talking into his iPhone while walking his dog during this interview, and I don't even think he half heard the question before he responded. So that's probably where some of the awkwardness really comes in that Josh Horowitz is talking about. But basically, Benioff said, well, James is a great guy, and that was about it. There was really nothing said there. So Benioff and Weiss, let's see how well Three Body, whatever the hell this thing's called, Three Body Problems is received by fans who watch it on Netflix. I know very little about it. It seems to be sci-fi in nature, but I'm not going to watch it, so what do I care?
All right.
If it's great, if people create a buzz about it, I might find myself being interested, but just scratching the surface, it doesn't look like anything I'd be interested in. File it away with Snyder's Rebel Moon movie, Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon. That's probably where this thing's going to land. Now, on the other side of the coin, I've heard a lot of great things about Gareth Edwards' sci-fi film, The Creator.
That's on my list. I want to see that. Yep.
Me too.
I've had it in my Amazon wish list for a while, so yeah, I got to get it.
So that's I think we can just close the book on Benioff and Weiss and Star Wars and keep that book permanently closed. Unless these guys want to start talking details about what was in their actual script, then I'd be interested. But
they may once the Mangold film comes out, and if it's a bomb, we might hear them talking about, we had a different take when we were working on that project. Yeah, ours was better. Yeah. It's like Colin Trevorrow putting out his Rise of Skywalker script after everyone hated. Well, not everyone, but there were a lot of issues.